And that's even more worrying when you look at the motivations of those smaller parties. Let's first look at the nationalists. We don't have to look far to understand their ultimate aim and what drives them. The clue is in the name. However they try and mask it, their purpose is to break up the United Kingdom. So no matter how attractive in the short term it might be to a Prime Minister who would be sustained in office by such an arrangement, it's the long-term security and prosperity of all the people of these islands that would suffer. And Nicola Sturgeon has said that she will help Ed Miliband into number 10. A weak Mr Miliband, balancing on a precarious parliamentary arrangement with wily, unreliable nationalists, would lead to uncertainty and risk as economic policy was pulled to the left and the government had no ability or will to take the difficult decisions. But the risks, I think, are just as great on the right. Blue Kip, as it is becoming known, is the name being given to any arrangement between the Conservatives and the UK Independence Party. As in the days of John Major, and it was interesting to see him rear his head earlier this week, this would see David Cameron in office but not in power, as his UKIP partners and their friends on the right of the Conservative Party would suck out even more and more concessions and drive the country even further down the route of what's called Brexit, British exit from the European Union. Britain would lurch to the right, away from the sound, sensible, balanced plan that has brought us this far. On their own, the Conservatives would finish the job of balancing the books unfairly, with cuts to the working age poor and to public services. In cahoots with UKIP, they pose a serious threat to Britain's place in the EU. On their own, Labour don't have a credible plan for the economy, but in cahoots with the SNP, they'll be pushed into ever greater borrowing and debt, repeating the mistakes of the past. And these scenarios are real possibilities, for which we would all pay a real price. And already we're seeing the markets warning of the dangers. Today I'm publishing an analysis of the market reaction towards the election. We're already seeing the pound affected. As Dara Mayer, a currency strategist at HSBC, said, you're seeing the first signs that some of the political risk has been priced into sterling. The bond market is also showing concern. The bid to cover ratio, which is the demand in the auction as a ratio of the supply, for 25-year index-linked bonds hit 1.4 last week compared to 1.9 in August last year. Now that might just be down to the specific bonds being issued, or as Andy Chater, head of European interest rate strategy at Nomura, comments, it could be the political risk of a weak government after May the 7th. BlackRock have said that any backtracking on the pace of deficit reduction by a Labour government would likely lead to a temporary sell-off in gilts. Goldman have said that market concern over budget discipline could lead to a rise in gilt yields. While Investec management have also said that the uncertainty about potential EU referendums may also result in rising gilt yields. Business investment would be affected too. A survey by the Institute for Chartered Accountants in England and Wales revealed that 52% of those asked said that uncertainty around the election was a factor in dissuading them from reinvesting. That's action by markets and businesses, their reaction to the perception of instability that's already apparent. And that market reaction is a warning to voters too. Put simply, the idea that an unstable minority government would have the confidence of business and the markets is for the birds. A minority government seeking to introduce measures to reduce the deficit would be challenged at every turn. Government would grind to a halt, lowest common denominator politics. Now some may see that as attractive, but this misses the massive macroeconomic consequences of failing to address our economic challenges. In these circumstances, it's not unrealistic to think that business investment would seize up, that foreign direct investment would go elsewhere, that the once safe haven of the UK gilt market would suddenly look significantly more risky. Or as Goldman Sachs recently remarked, concern over budgetary discipline, if left unchecked, could lead to a rise in gilt yields. And so the consequences would be marked, not just for businesses, not just for the government's cost of borrowing, but also for households as interest rates rise and the cost of mortgages increased. Ross Walker from the Royal Bank of Scotland made the point in a different way. He said, England does not love coalitions, opined Disraeli, something seemingly borne out by polling data a century and a half later. But a minority government might well prove an even less desirable outcome for markets. UK political risk, he said, looks underpriced. Let's look at what the city's saying about the future. Merrill Lynch have said that a left-wing coalition around Labour would trigger a deterioration in potential GDP growth. Andrew Smithers, founder of Smithers & Co, has said that a Labour government supported by the SNP would entrench the structural problems of the UK and slow its trend growth rate. Deutsche Bank have said that the Conservatives' proposals for an EU referendum would have negative consequences for both investment and sterling. While International Finance magazine have said that the prospects of a Conservative UKIP coalition would frighten many investors and businesses. In short, a paralysed government would soon lead to a paralysed economy. And rising gilt yields is market speak for higher interest rates. A departure from the balanced approach that we've taken in this coalition is estimated by one analyst to lead to a rise in interest rates of at least 0.7%. This would cost the average household an extra £800 a year in mortgage interest payments. It's a high price for millions of people to pay. The value of sterling hit, rising bond yields costing billions more in interest payments every year, and an estimated 4.2 billion more in the cost of debt interest if gilt yields rise by just 1%. That's the price of a weak government that's dragged further to the left or the right, abandoning the economic plan that's got us this far. It's a price that every person and every business in this country would pay. So how can we avoid these dangerous outcomes? Well, it may not surprise you to hear me say, but the answer to that question is the Liberal Democrats. We will ensure that our country doesn't lurch to left or right, but sticks to the centre ground. We've shown that we can deliver a strong and stable government and not allow our country to be pulled to the extremes or to be paralysed with indecision. There needs to be a plan to rebalance our economy. There needs to be a plan to further reinvigorate our nation's infrastructure. There needs to be a plan to boost the life chances of every child in the UK, not just those who are born in privileged circumstances. And yes, there also needs to be a plan to balance the books, to do so responsibly, to do so in a fair way, and in a way that allows us to invest in our public services and to reduce the debt burden. That's our plan. 5 years ago, my Labour predecessor left a note on my desk, which said, "Sorry, there's no money left." I finally got round to replying to that letter today. My reply says, "Sorry for the late reply, I've been busy fixing the economy. The deficit halved, jobs up, growth up. That's the Lib Dem record. We won't let you or the Tories screw it up." And that's why the country needs as many Liberal Democrat MPs in Parliament as possible come May the 8th. We have a track record of strong government, we have a track record of stable government, we have a track record of delivery. A vote in this election for the SNP or for UKIP is a vote for instability, because neither David Cameron nor Ed Miliband can win a majority by themselves. That's why you need Lib Dems as part of the next government. As Nick Clegg put it last week, the heart in a Conservative coalition, the head in a Labour coalition, a strong economy and a fair society, ensuring our country has the opportunity to move from rescue and repair to economic renewal, so that our people and our businesses have the best opportunity for the future. Thank you very much for listening.